Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another Winchester Wednesdays. I am your host, Winchester 572. And yes, here I am with yet another thingy to do things. So, how are we all doing today? Yeah. Hope you enjoyed whatever went on last week. For Halloween, I was getting ready for Ciderfest, and Ciderfest happened, and I'm back, and it went well. So yeah, and then we had Nahum, and Nahum went okay, except for the venue literally kicking out like half the people that wanted to come. So yeah, that kind of sucked, but we got things figured out. So yeah, also got back home safely. So yeah. Also, by the way, Steel Chords released an album. The best way to find it is to go to steelchords.bandcamp.com, because apparently there's not an actual link anywhere to the actual thing. So yeah, you can find it there. It's all original stuff. So go check that out. And yes, without further ado, let me get into the call. I call.
Now, the
What do
problem
you
I have
want?
with this is that while they took gravity into account on it, I'm not sure the fluids would actually flow that way just due to air mass and honestly capillary action.
Well,
Yeah, that is kind of a harsh truth.
it works.
I mean, the thing is that the materials themselves look really realistic in this, and on top of that, I see the situation itself as generating much interest amongst many people. Well,
Yeah,
some people.
I get that. I feel you.
Fun. Alrighty. So getting things started here, we have our wonderful call people. We have my co-host, Crazy Matt Captain, here.
Everything may be on fire.
Yes, it is. Next up, we have our wonderful fanfiction editor, Double R Forest.
For the record, Larsis, that other pic you sent me, that is not one of my fetishes.
That's fair.
Alrighty, and as was just spoiled by Double R, we have Larsis.
Hello, I am also Forrest Thrain. It's nice to meet you all.
And we also have Larsis' Goldfish,
Bug.
specifically set to Focusrite resetting duty.
Huggy bug.
And Forest Rain will hopefully be joining us momentarily after she finds some sustenance in the emptiness of nothing.
Are you absolutely sure she'll be joining with us on time?
Yes. Literally during the intro. And speak of the devil.
That message now, did we?
Now, what did the goldfish do?
Simple. I closed out a shitty ass piece of software that wasn't ever meant to run audio called Audition, so that Discord would work properly. Discord being the premier audio transmission program that's never had any issues with ASIO devices.
So true.
Sounds
there
good to
it
me.
Oh wait, I have to talk like a nerd because I'm around a college. That is ASIO.
And Toa, yes, it was a yes. Anymore in this day and age, people getting turned away means more so that it is a real concert.
My goldfish says the definition of real concert is less to do with whether or not there's a concert, more to do with how drunk the crowd is.
I thought it had to do with how much drugs there were.
All right,
Let me
and also we have
define to
Forest
you.
Rain.
Let me define to you exactly what musician means. It means getting home after working at a soul-sucking job for 10 hours and eating tuna out of a can while eating bread. That is being a musician.
It doesn't involve any musical instruments, singing ability, or any other musical talent. It involves that.
Isn't that just a tuna fish sandwich that you're just too lazy to put together?
You have to suffer before you can make music.
Well,
And yes, basically.
and
Or get high.
even with that, what I understand of a nice tuna fish sandwich is you have to get the tuna juice out of the tuna, then you have to mix the tuna with some Miracle Whip or something, and then spread it on the bread. And then you give the bowl of tuna juice to the cats because the cats will murder you.
My idea of a tuna fish sandwich is you give the entire can of tuna to your cats, so that way they can eat it and be happy while you cook up a steak.
Yeah, I'm with
steaks-
that one.
Steaks are overrated.
Steaks are overrated until I make them. Then they're very underrated.
What's
But anyway,
overrated till you make them?
I'm not brave
Steaks?
enough to actually eat a tuna fish sandwich, anyways.
What are the odds of you actually cooking me up a steak anytime soon?
So
Slim.
Forrest and
Exactly.
I need to have a steak off, or I'm gonna call it the Great Stakeout.
I've got multiple day old donuts.
I have a jar of peanut butter.
But multiple day old donuts.
I'm finishing off my bottle of beer.
Actually, that reminds me. I'll be right back.
You started this without getting a drink?
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you these words from our sponsors.
I
Over
should
to you,
not take a
Larsus.
bite out of these donuts because it will make my throat dry and I have to do reading.
Tonight's program is brought to you by Kroger Extra Virgin Olive Oil for all of your olive oil needs, and being able to make an Italian spread done properly with bread, olives, and meat. Choose Kroger branded extra virgin olive oil today.
Warning:
So
do
we-
not use Kroger branded extra virgin olive oil for searing your steak.
So the other day we were working with these things called Hubble connectors, and we also were talking about gum. So I asked one of the dudes if he's ever worked with Hubble connectors while chewing Hubba Bubba Double Bubble Bubble Gum. It was pretty great. I'm an AV tech, so my sense of humor sucks now.
Yep.
So you're basically
Yeah,
looking
make a
for
drink.
Hey, Forrest, I'm thinking of getting a Segway. What do you think of it there? It's that picture in the chat.
Okay.
It fits every definition of a Segway. It's got a white body, black wheels, black handlebars, requires good balance, and is electrically powered.
And has approximately the same specs as my 450.
It's got 10 fewer torques than your 450.
I was gonna say, based off of your description, it also describes the lift that they had at the concert venue.
It only had 2 wheels.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But that one was blue.
Shut up.
It
It also
said-
looks like something Paul Blart would wear, or would ride, rather.
Hey, I said that earlier. Don't go stealing
Yeah.
off my bill.
Yeah, well, it does look like what Paul Blart would ride if Paul Blart were played by Brad Pitt.
Okay, that was.
I want to see that now. So, anyways, let's get on to the main meat and potatoes for the evening. The fic thingy. So, yeah.
Meat and potatoes, he said. Well, tonight's meat will be played by a 11-ounce ribeye with perfect marbling. The potatoes will be played by fingerlings, which are going to be sliced in half and sautéed in olive oil at around 600 or so degrees until the outside is crispy. We're also going to be having vegetables played by zucchini and collards. The zucchini is going to be cubed and sautéed until it's nice and tender, and the collard greens are going to be roughly chopped and then sautéed with a lemon butter sauce. All this will be served with a side of hollandaise.
Hey, we don't have the link to that up here.
Oh, well, I guess I have to go with this Project Sunflower thing. Looks like I'm going to be narrating tonight. Double R is going to be doing Meadowlark and Moonlight Glimmer, not to be confused with Starlight Glimmer.
There's a
Forrest,
difference.
Forest Rain is going to be a very, very busy mayor.
Courtesy of Winchester. It was his idea.
Yeah. Who's going to be doing Twilight, Rare, or Marigold, and Rarity. CMC will be playing Aaron and a random Canterlot citizen, who we've determined is Russian. And finally, Winchester has a very, very busy night playing a waiter who has one line.
Story of his life.
He may be a tourist.
Hey, but if he's the tourist, then he's actually going to be played by Johnny Depp, and this might actually be pretty good. Hey, if he's the tourist, does that mean that Forrest is going to be played by Angelina Jolie?
God, I hope so.
Awesome.
Aww.
So this is Project Sunflower Part 7 in our multi-part series, because no one gave me a count on how long this is going to go for. And the story is by Hoopy McGee, which is a name that still makes me giggle whenever I try reading it. So with further ado, Chapter 13, Arrival in Canterlot. It felt like a very long time since Twilight had last been in Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns, but the mare next to her hadn't changed a bit. Moonlight Glimmer, not to be confused with Starlight Glimmer, was currently looking at her with a quizzical expression in her bright pink eyes.
So, it's a story about a mare who has no magic at all.
That's right.
Intriguing premises, Miss Sparkle.
Thank you, Professor Glimmer.
Twilight smiled at her former teacher as they walked down the hallway towards the library proper.
So, how would this mare heroine of yours become afflicted with such an ailment?
Well, that's what I was hoping you could help me with, ma'am. I'm kind of stuck on that part, and I want to make sure I get it right.
The older mare laughed and brushed her bone-white mane away from her face.
Twilight, you haven't changed after all.
What do you mean?
Well, when you came to me and said you were writing a work of fiction, I was surprised. It seems so unlike you to undertake something that a younger version of yourself might have considered frivolous. And yet, I can see the images of the filly I once knew peeking out in your desire to get every detail right, even when it comes to an ailment that you invented out of whole cloth.
The albino mare smiled down at her former pupil, who was frowning slightly.
Just because it's a work of fiction, that doesn't mean it can't be scientifically accurate.
And that's what I meant, dear. I was concerned for a moment that my super serious Twilight Sparkle had given up scholarly pursuits in order to have a little fun.
I'm not.
Twilight began to protest, then stopped and smiled as she realized that her former professor was baiting her.
Okay. I can take things a little too seriously at times. But still, it's important for me to get it right. So, do you know if anything that would make a pony unable to access magic? As in, she'd be totally untouched by it in any way.
Professor Moonlight Glimmer stopped walking and pressed one hoof up underneath her chin in thought. Twilight waited patiently next to her, confident that she'd get a thorough answer from the older mare. When Twilight had first come to Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns, she'd been afraid of the pale mare. Albinism is rare among species, and the only color on the mare was her startlingly pink eyes. Even her cutie mark was a black circle that depicted a waning crescent moon. That fear quickly changed as the professor displayed a genuine warmth and patience with her, even though she'd been nervous and somewhat timid little filly. Moonlight Glimmer had rapidly become one of Twilight's favorite teachers, and her subject was magical biology. If anyone, short of Celestia or Luna, could answer the question of how Sunflower had lost her magic, it would be Professor Glimmer.
I have no idea.
Twilight groaned.
Ugh.
Why don't you just make up something plausible? It can literally be anything. After all, it is just a work of fiction, right?
Yes, I suppose.
Of course, if your heroine was born that way, she wouldn't have a cutie mark. That would make for an interesting story, I think. You know, how she deals with being different and all, which is a subject close to my own heart.
No cutie mark.
Yes, after all, you need some cutie mark. Both donkeys and zebras are closely related to ponies, but zebras, with their inherent magic, get their glyph marks the same way ponies get cutie marks, and donkeys never get any kind of mark at all. Zebras have inherent music magic, and donkeys don't.
Twilight was surprised. Weren't glyph marks from Fallout Equestria? Also, why hadn't she thought of that? She'd been working under the assumption that Sunflower had been normal and something happened to take her magic away, but now she had confirmation. Whatever had happened to Sunflower had obviously happened to her cutie and her cutie whatever had happened to Sunflower had obviously happened after her cutie mark had come in. It wasn't much more of a lead than she had already, but at least it was something. It meant that the mare had obviously had magic at one point and then lost it. She couldn't have been born without it, or she would have never received her mark. Twilight frowned and thought about it a moment longer. Something seemed wrong with that argument, and it took her a moment to pin it down.
But wait a moment, Professor. Mules and donkeys are part of the magic field. They can't use magic, but magic itself doesn't part around them, like it does from, the main character in my story.
Professor Glimmer blinked in surprise.
You can see magical fields, Twilight?
Yes?
Her older teacher beamed widely and hugged her unexpectedly around the neck, causing the purple unicorn to stiffen in shock.
Oh, Twilight, I'm so proud. Only a very few unicorns in all of recorded history have the ability or insight to see the magical field that permeates Equestria. I can, and Professor Starfall can as well. And maybe a half dozen others, but that's all that we know of right now. Oh, and the princesses of.
Oh, really?
Twilight smiled weakly back at Moonlight Glimmer's proud grin. Somehow it hadn't occurred to her that other ponies would be able to sense what she'd sensed about Sunflower's lack of magic. How could she have been so stupid? Obviously, they couldn't stay in the palace. She wouldn't be able to keep Sunflower's condition a secret from the princess. She couldn't take her to the library or the school either, unless... Twilight suddenly realized that she'd been working under the assumption that Sunflower would want her condition to be kept secret, that she didn't want other ponies to know about her lack of magic. But was that actually the case? Perhaps the Earth Pony desperately wanted help but didn't know who or how to ask. The studious unicorn realized that she couldn't make that assumption either way. She'd have to talk to Sunflower about it when she arrived and leave the choice up to her. Of course, that meant she'd also have to reveal that she herself knew the secret of the mare's lack of magic. She really hoped that Sunflower wouldn't be too upset about that. Twilight shook her head and refocused on the task at hand, which was currently to extricate herself from the professor's enthusiastic hug.
Well, I just realized I could see it a short while ago, really. That's how this idea occurred to me. A sort of what if a pony wasn't a part of this kind of idea.
Well, like you said, even donkeys and mules, and every other living thing in Equestria, for that matter, is a part of that magical field. But that doesn't mean that they can use it like a pony can. The only way your hero could be a pony outside of the field is, well, maybe if she were a zombie pony.
Moonlight Glimmer laughed at that, and Twilight, wide-eyed at the previously unconsidered possibility, forced herself to join along.
Letter for you.
Meadowlark passed her a heavy cream-colored scroll.
For me, really?
She had no idea who would be sending her a letter, especially one on such expensive-looking stationery. She took the scroll with her hooves and pulled the ribbon off with her teeth before unrolling it on a nearby coffee table. It turned out to be several pages, all rolled together. Aaron quickly scanned the top page.
Oh, it's from Twilight Sparkle.
Dear Sunflower, I regret to say that there are no rooms immediately available in the castle, and that we may not be able to meet the princesses as I was hoping. That may change once you get here, though. I will discuss it with you then. In the meanwhile, I have arranged to stay with my parents. I can stay in my old bedroom, and they would be happy to put you up in the guest room. I was able to procure a round-trip pass for you on the Canterlot Express, ticket enclosed with this scroll. Please be sure to catch the 10:15 a.m. train to Canterlot, which you can catch at Platform B. I've attached a train schedule as well. See second page. However, the 10:15 is definitely the train you want to catch. You should make sure to arrive at least 30 minutes early to be assured of a place to sit on the train. The Saturday trains tend to get fairly full very quickly. Present the enclosed ticket with the conductor when the conductor comes down the aisle. He or she will punch the ticket for you and return it to you. Be sure not to lose the ticket after it's returned, or you'll have to purchase a new one for the return trip. The train should depart by approximately 10:15, though sometimes they do leave a few minutes late. I have written several letters to the Equestrian Railway Committee about the importance of efficiency and punctuality, but to no effect. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, that should place you in Canterlot by 12 noon, at the very latest. I will meet you at the arrival platform and take you to lunch at my favorite restaurant near the station, Bal de Foin. Attached, page 3, is a copy of their menu. Please go over it and make a decision now, as that will save time in the restaurant, which will make sure that we stay on schedule. I have reservations at 12:15 exactly, so please don't miss the 10:15 train. After lunch, which I estimate will last approximately 65 minutes based on average serving time and the duration of small talk, we can head to the Royal Museum of Canterlot. We should be there by 1:30 in order to stay on schedule. I've budgeted 90 minutes, which should be plenty of time to see the displays that interest you the most. See page 4 for a list of attractions and select the ones you wish to see. Keep in mind, the more exhibits you wish to see, the less time we'll have to see each of them. I'd recommend no more than 20 attractions, as that will give us 4 minutes to enjoy each, plus an extra 10 minutes of time for walking around. Once we leave the Royal Museum, I have a grand tour of Canterlot planned, where we'll see a series of important cultural locations. See attached itinerary, page 5. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. And don't forget, make sure to make the 10:15 train. Maybe you should show up 45 minutes early, just to be sure you catch it. See you Saturday. Twilight Sparkle.
Aaron blinked in surprise, then flipped through the other sheets of paper that were rolled up in the first one. In Twilight's precise writing, she found each of the attached documents, also written in the librarian's exacting script. Also included, she found a golden ticket with fancy black scroll border and the words Canterlot Express Dual Pass stamped on it.
Well, she's nothing if not thorough.
You should see her during winter wrap up.
Erin smiled, even though she had no idea what that meant. She made a mental note to look up winter wrap up in the library the next she visited.
I'm gonna go take my saddlebags off for tea, if that's okay.
Meadowlark nodded. She trotted into her room and took off her new green saddlebags, then placed Twilight's letter, the ticket, and all the other pages inside. Then she walked back out into the common room where Meadowlark had set up a small platter of tiny triangular sandwiches, some cookies, and a pot of tea with 3 cups. Marigold was frowning intently at her cup as if she were trying to decide if she really liked tea, or if she should just fake it so adults wouldn't send her away. Erin Meadowlark had grown closer over the last few days, ever since she'd surprised the single mother by asking if it were okay to give her daughter the gift she had bought on Sunday. Since it had become something of a custom for them to meet and chat over tea and sandwiches when Erin returned from work. Marigold had been extremely excited over her new saddlebags and school supplies, just like Erin had suspected she would. The filly had immediately taken everything out of the bag, spent almost an hour going through everything and organizing it, then meticulously put it all back in. Then she carefully removed her box of crayons and drawing paper Erin had given her and drew a colorful picture of a smiling pony standing under a big glowing sun in a grassy field with occasional flowers. Erin had recognized her own coloration on the pony and was honestly touched that the filly would draw a picture of her, and even more so when the picture turned out to be a present. The picture was now carefully tacked on her bedroom wall, the only personal decoration that Erin had in her room. There were other pictures scattered around the guest house now, and Marigold had spent a lot of her time recently producing drawing after drawing. Many of them were of Meadowlark or her friend Dinky, but a few had Erin in them as well. In fact, the filly was coloring again as Erin re entered the room. She had a seat across the table from Meadowlark, who was currently pouring out the tea. Erin spooned some sugar into the cup and stirred it.
So, how was work today?
Oh, it was very interesting. I had to make a delivery to Rainbow Dash's house. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yes, she does have a very nice house.
Erin cocked her head at the unicorn in her grin, thinking that she seemed far too happy about having seen Rainbow Dash's cloud house.
What's going on? Did something happen between you and Starburst?
Meadowlark blushed in response to her cult friend's name, and Erin noticed that Marigold, though still apparently coloring, had slowed down considerably and had swiveled her closest ear in their direction.
Oh, nothing all that important.
The mare said evasively, catching Erin's eye and giving a meaningful look towards the filly. The look said, "I can't talk about it now, but yes."
Oh, I see.
She cleared her throat and then smiled warmly at the still blushing unicorn. She was extremely happy that the married someone in her life, and apparently Starburst was touchingly dedicated to her. During previous conversations, Meadowlark had mentioned that she had been very lonely since Marigold's father had passed away. It had been a freak accident. The filly was still in diapers when it happened. And unfortunately, being a suddenly single mom had taken up all of Meadowlark's free time. Not that it wasn't worth it. The filly was Meadowlark's entire world. But she hadn't had many ponies her own age to talk to or get close to in that time. Starburst had asked Meadowlark about 2 weeks before Aaron had started staying at the guest house, and they'd gone out maybe a half dozen times since then. The Pegasus stallion had also developed a habit of stopping by occasionally in the evenings and having dinner with the single mother and her filly. They would have gone out far more often, but it was difficult for Meadowlark to find a babysitter, which was a situation that Aaron's arrival had neatly alleviated. She was more than happy to watch the filly tonight, allowing the budding couple to spend more time together outside of the house.
Well, I'm happy that things are going so well for you two. He seems like a perfectly nice stallion. Very sweet. Don't you think so, Marigold?
He's a butt.
Marigold!
Aaron just laughed. She couldn't help it. She had not expected that reply.
You shouldn't say that kind of thing, young filly.
Meadowlark gave Aaron a glare that dried up her giggles.
Why would you say that?
Marigold, not even pretending to color anymore, just shrugged and stared at her paper.
Sweetie, is it because you're worried he's going to take your mommy away from you?
There was a short pause, and then a sharp nod from the filly. Meadowlark's shocked annoyance vanished instantly as she bundled the filly up in a fierce hug.
Oh, Marigold. There is no way any pony will take me away from you. Not ever. You understand? But sometimes Mommy needs to see adult ponies her own age. Sort of like how you have friends. Is Dinky Doo going to take you away from me?
The filly shook her head, which was currently buried in Meadowlark's chest.
There, you see? Starburst isn't going to take me away from you any more than Sunflower is. He's a good friend, okay? And I'd like him to be an even better friend. Is that going to be okay with you?
There was a long pause as the filly mulled it over.
Okay, Mommy.
Meadowlark released her daughter, who sat there for a couple of seconds before once again taking up the crayon and coloring, though Aaron thought she seemed a little happier than she did a few minutes ago. Sometimes all a kid needs is reassurance, Aaron thought.
So, you were saying about Rainbow Dash's house?
Meadowlark asked, trying to get the conversation steered well away from her love life. Aaron had actually been stunned by the Pegasus's house, which was apparently carved directly out of clouds. She never even dreamed that such a thing were possible. She wondered how it kept together. Surely, if it were actually made of cloud, it would have drifted apart by now. And yet, not only had it stayed together, but it stayed in place even in the face of a mild breeze. And that didn't even count the liquid rainbow waterfalls or the apparently permanent rainbow living over the arch. Rainbow simply glided down at Aaron's arrival, apparently having just woken up from a nap, even though it was early afternoon. Her eyes were half closed and her mane and tail a snarled mess. She'd signed for a package, mumbled a quick thanks, and then something about the Iron Pony competition that Aaron just nodded dumbly to and then winged it back up to her house. After staring in dumbfounded silence for a few minutes, Aaron had trotted away, glancing back over her shoulder from time to time to make sure the house was still there and it hadn't vanished like a mirage. It shouldn't have been possible. It wouldn't have been possible on Earth, at least not as it appeared. There must have been some kind of trick to it, like it was some elaborate hologram or something. It was the strongest challenge to Aaron's accept everything policy that she'd encountered yet, and she still managed to somehow avoid obsessing over it. Well, obsessing over it too much. She really did want to know how it worked, though. She'd have to ask Rainbow Dash the next time they met when she wasn't working. When she delivered the package, she'd been too much shock over the whole thing to ask her.
It was very interesting.
Yes, I always thought so. It's one of the more interesting cloud homes around Ponyville. I understand her parents gave her that house when she moved out of Cloudsdale.
Oh, that's nice of them.
She used to have it on the south side of town, but moved it a few weeks ago to the west. Not sure why. Maybe she likes the view better?
Aaron laughed at that. Of course the house could be moved. A stiff breeze couldn't move it, but it was still made of clouds, right? She felt a tinge of hysteria coming on, so she quickly changed the subject, asking how Meadowlark's day had gone so far. The two of them chatted for about an hour about any old thing, and then Erin excused herself, explaining she had to go pick up her new dress from Rarity. The elegant white unicorn told her that the alterations would be done by today and to stop by after 6 o'clock to pick it up. Saying goodbye to her mother and daughter, Erin trotted across town to the Carousel Boutique. Rarity opened the door and ushered her in, levitating the dress off the dressing dummy. The white unicorn insisted that Erin try it on right then, even going so far as to provide a privacy screen. The screen confused Erin. Weren't ponies usually naked anyway? Was there some sort of taboo to being seen getting dressed that didn't apply when either dressed or naked or fully dressed? It was just another one of those many things she didn't understand about pony culture, she decided, and stepped behind the screen to try it on. She had less trouble getting the dress on than she thought she would, no doubt due to all the practice getting her uniform on and off every day. She stood on her hind legs and dropped the dress over her head with her legs through the sleeves, letting it settle naturally, then managed to push her tail through the gap in the back of the skirt. Finally, she tightened the dark green belt with her teeth and stepped out from behind the screen.
Oh, darling, you look marvelous. That dress fits you wonderfully now, and the colors complement you perfectly, if I do say so myself.
Erin glanced in the mirror, and she had to agree. The light yellow blouse with sleeves fit her loosely, but well, not restricting any movements, but also not looking baggy or gappy anywhere. The cuffs on the sleeves were a dark green, matching the belt, which tied up right in front of her back legs. The pale green skirt hung down just under her hocks, low, but not so low as to drag on the ground. The bell of the skirt stretching from her hindquarters angling up to the belt, so that her back legs were both completely covered and also unrestricted. To finish off the look, the skirt also had a dark green spade-shaped leaves embroidered on it and the same dark green border on the edges. Erin smiled at her reflection. It really did look good. And it was so well cut that, if it weren't for the slightly unusual feeling of something touching the hairs on her coat, she wouldn't even known she was wearing anything at all.
It's perfect, Rarity. Just what I asked for. No, more than what I asked for. Casual but stylish, completely comfortable. Honestly, I've never owned a nicer dress.
All that was true. Erin didn't dislike dresses in general, preferring pants or very rarely skirts. However, she did own a few for special occasions, and none of them looked as nice as this, or were nearly as well fitted or comfortable. Rarity beamed at the praise, accepting it all as her due, but enjoying it anyway. Erin got the feeling that this was a pony who knew perfectly how talented she was, somehow without letting that knowledge go to her head.
Well, we're not finished yet, my dear. You paid for a hat as well, after all. And now that we have the dress completed, we must simply find the perfect chapeau.
Erin blinked. Did Rarity just speak French at her? Come to think of it, Twilight's letter mentioned a restaurant with a French name. No, Erin shook her head. She decided not to overanalyze anything. Besides, ponies speaking occasional French was hardly more strange than ponies speaking English, or indeed anything at all. Rarity was pulling hat after hat towards her with telekinesis, fronting at them with an evaluating expression, then discarding them one after another. Finally, she tried over with a broad straw hat with a wide circular brim.
Try this on, darling. I believe this will do nicely, complementing the casualness and the style of the dress.
With that, the purple maned unicorn settled the hat on top of Erin's head. She had to fold her ears down, but the hat fit well, and it did look good. The unicorn wasn't quite satisfied, however.
Something is still missing. Ah, I know exactly what we need.
And with that, a dark green ribbon snaked out of Rarity's supply room and wove itself into a bow on top of the hat. Erin glanced back at the mirror. It really did look right, the ends of the ribbon dangling down over the back of her hat.
Oh, this is perfect.
Rarity graciously inclined her head in agreement.
Do I owe you anything else for the ribbon?
She'd already paid for the dress and the hat on Monday, back when she'd first stopped in. The designer shook her head.
No, my dear. That ribbon simply belongs with that hat. No, I'd never dream of charging for it.
Well, thank you very much, Rarity. I can't wait to wear this dress this weekend.
Oh, yes. You're meeting Twilight Sparkle in Canterlot, aren't you? She mentioned that to me earlier this week.
Yes, I'm so excited. I've never been there before. I'm sure it will be wonderful.
It is indeed the high point of equestrian society. However, if I could give you a word of advice, dear,
Yes?
never forget where you come from. Canterlot society can go to one's head, and it's very possible to forget what's really important while you're there. Friends, family, and home.
Believe me, Rarity, I won't have any problem remembering that.
Rarity smiled and then instructed her to step behind the screen and remove the dress so it could be carefully folded and placed in a large paper bag. Erin, not wanting to ruin her new dress before she had a chance to wear it in Canterlot, eagerly obliged. A few minutes later, and a warm goodbye later, Erin was on her way back to the guest house once again. Across the aisle, a grayish unicorn stallion lowered his paper and scowled over the top of his half moon glasses at her. A rosy pink unicorn sitting next to him added in the weight of her with her own disapproving stare. Erin barely noticed. She was far too excited, bouncing on her hooves as the equestrian countryside flashed by with her nose pressed almost against the glass.
Tourists.
No, I say turistas. Her companion. No, we're making this a Mexican horse. Anyway, her companion gave an accompanying eye roll. The stallion snorted in derisive agreement and then snapped his paper with a quick flick of telekinesis and raised it back up to eye level, quite obviously deciding that she was worth no further consideration. That was the first hint that Erin had that the open friendliness shown to her in Ponyville may not extend to all of Equestria. Her heart trembled a bit at the thought, seeing as she was now heading full tilt towards Canterlot, the hub of equestrian society and politics, and the third largest city by population behind Manhattan and Philadelphia. She forced the thought out of her mind. It didn't matter. However rude the citizens may or may not be was inconsequential. She was meeting Twilight there. The overly prepared unicorn's itinerary and various lists were packed away in her dark green saddlebags, and her coin purse was stashed away in a handy pocket sewn in the front of her new dress. She also had the bag of fake bits in her saddlebag, just in case she found a money changer in Canterlot. Ponyville hadn't had one, but then the relatively small town probably didn't need one. She could barely wait. She'd spent the whole week up to this point getting more and more excited, not wanting to spend bits unnecessarily. She even resorted to grazing during her morning runs rather than buying breakfast just to be sure she'd have plenty to spend on souvenirs and attractions. Eventually, the train ascended to a mountain path, and Erin found herself more fascinated than ever at the landscape stretched out before her. She couldn't see Ponyville, the angle was all wrong, but she could see parts of the creepy Everfree forest below. Other than that, it was all farmlands, grasslands, and occasional large copses of trees and shrubs. In the distance, though, was something new, a large stationary cloud bank. Erin stared a moment, trying to figure out why it seemed odd. Then it triggered her long distance viewing. The clouds suddenly appeared to leap closer to her, and she could make out dozens of what looked like Pegasi flying around. Similar to Rainbow Dash's home, there appeared to be buildings constructed of clouds along with waterfalls and Aaron scrambled for a word. Rainbow Falls? Whatever, it worked. Because that's what it looked like. With a shiver, Aaron realized that she was looking at Cloudsdale, home of the Pegasi and manufacturer of weather for most of Equestria. The feeling of awe she felt looking at it was almost immediately joined by a feeling of sadness. It was unlikely she could ever visit that city. All she could do was look at it from a distance. With a sigh, she returned her vision to normal and sat down in her seat. She wasn't able to stay down for long, however, because every once in a while, a bend in the track would show her the city in the distance, growing ever closer. Canterlot. It's only a model. Up close, it was even more impressive than she'd seen from Ponyville. The delicate white marble spires with sunlight glinting off their gold caps, the cascading waterfalls, all hanging gracefully off the side of the mountain. The city looked fragile, especially when compared to the harshness of the mountains. And it was bigger than it looked. The palace itself was enormous, rising up like a skyscraper. It was the palace that gave the illusion the city was actually suspended in air. Aaron noticed as the train got closer. Most of Canterlot was actually built on ground level, but it was the palace with its tall towers that hung over open space. She stared at it every time it came into view. Something like that shouldn't exist. That much weight? How did it stay up? She was no engineer, but it looked to her like at least part of the palace should have snapped off and tumbled in the valley by now. Many of the towers looked far too delicate to support their own weight. Perhaps it was a special construction material? Some special stone or something? Or perhaps the towers themselves weren't made of marble like she'd assumed. Could it be some sort of steel infrastructure with a facade on the front designed to make it look like stone? Maybe it's magic, she thought to herself with a snort. She reminded herself once again that to simply accept what she saw rather than analyzing it to death. Magic was a good shorthand for things I don't understand, after all. Finally, the train pulled into the station. Aaron saw Twilight Sparkle standing patiently on the arrival platform looking at windows. She waved, but the small unicorn didn't see her. Aaron quickly cinched up her saddlebags and trotted out the exit, trotting up to the waiting mare.
Hi, Twilight. Ah. Hi, Twilight. Thanks so much for the ticket. I appreciate it so much.
Hi, Sunflower. Did you drop something there? Never mind. I love how that dress turned out. Did you have a good trip?
Oh, it was amazing. I could even see Cloudsdale in the distance.
Chatting amiably, the two mares made their way to the Bas de Foix restaurant, Aaron rubbernecking as she tried to take in all the sights. Twilight Sparkle, having much experience with friends from Ponyville arriving in Canterlot for the first time, smiled at her companion's enthusiasm and resisted her urge to rush her along. They arrived at the restaurant, a large affair with columns out the front door, and a maitre d' who escorted them to their table before turning them over to a waiter, a young but scrupulously groomed white-coated stallion who took their orders with a minimum of fuss. They chatted as they waited for the food to arrive, but Aaron sensed that something was bothering her unicorn companion. Finally, she just stopped.
Twilight, is something bothering you?
Twilight sighed, then looked her in the eye.
Sunflower, there's no easy way of telling you this, so I'll just say it straight.
The librarian glanced around and then, apparently satisfied that no pony else was close enough to overhear, cleared her throat and leaned forward. Aaron leaned in as well, curious as to what would make the mare look this serious.
Sunflower, I know your secret.
Aaron had an unpleasant feeling of coldness run through her, as if she'd just drunk a gallon of ice water. She blinked at Twilight's serious expression, and then realized she'd been holding her breath. She drew in a shaky breath and asked,
Well, what secrets, Twilight?
and with that, Twilight kissed her. No, I'm kidding. Even to her, it was obvious that she was trying far too hard to be casual. The unicorn glanced around again and said,
I know that you can't do magic. I noticed it on the first day that we met. Not only can't you do magic, you're completely untouched by magic. That shouldn't even be possible, but it's true.
Erin was feeling pretty close to panic by now. There was no way she could fake her way out of this. She really couldn't do whatever it was Twilight was referring to as magic. She tried to say something, anything that would allay suspicion, but it was as if an icy hand had clasped around her throat. Mouth hanging open, all she was able to do was make strangled noises. Twilight's eyes widened. She laid a hoof over Erin's own hoof.
It's okay. I haven't told any pony about your ailment, and if you don't want me to, I won't. That's a promise. But if I can sense that from you, then certain other ponies could too. That's why I said we'd discuss whether or not to meet the princesses when you arrived. I wanted to leave it up to you if you wanted to meet them and ask for their help.
Ailment? Erin blinked in surprise. Slowly it sunk in that she hadn't been outed as a non-pony. Twilight just thought she'd suffered some sort of illness or something. She fought down hysterical relieved laughter for a moment before she trusted herself to talk.
Um, thank you. I don't think I want anyone else knowing about this, though, if that's okay.
Twilight looked distressed by that and immediately started to protest.
But the princesses could help you. They've been alive for well over 1,000 years. They've seen all sorts of things. They've forgotten more about magic than any pony who's ever lived. They can help you, Sunflower. I know I can't. I couldn't even figure out how or why it happened.
Aaron noted the alive for over 1,000 years part of Twilight's statement and wondered why she felt surprised. After everything else, finding out that pony princesses were immortal wasn't all that big of a deal. Then something else Twilight said sunk in.
Twilight, have you? Am I research project?
Judging by Twilight's guilty flinch, she realized she'd guessed right.
Please, don't be angry. I was just researching it because I wanted to help you. And I'll admit, I was curious as to how it could happen, but I really wanted to restore you to magic, that's all.
The unicorn sighed and looked away before continuing.
There is nothing in my library or in the Canterlot Royal Library that I've been able to find so far that tells me of any possibilities of how it could have happened.
Erin didn't know what to think. Ever since she'd met the librarian, she'd been talking about her research project, and now it turned out that she was researching how to fix an ailment she didn't even have. A wave of guilt crashed over when she realized what she'd put her friend through, albeit unintentionally. She made a quick decision and started talking.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Twilight, I suppose I owe you some explanation. Yes, I can't do magic. You're right about it. But I don't want to go into why that is, okay? And I really, really appreciate it, but please, don't try to fix me. I'm fine the way I am, honestly. I'm happy the way I am. I have lots of friends. I have a job. I'm not suffering. So thank you, but please, leave it alone.
Twilight looked distressed and sad for a long moment, then laughed ruefully.
I suppose if I had just been honest with you from the start, then we could have had this conversation much earlier and I could have avoided all that wasted effort. Still, though, the greatest magical and medical minds of all Equestria are here in Canterlot, and the two best belong to the princesses. If they can't fix you, then it can't be done.
It's okay, Twilight. I don't actually want to be fixed. I'm happy right now. And you're a really good friend for trying to help me. A better friend than I expected or deserved, to be honest, since I was hiding this from you.
Twilight blushed and busied herself with fiddling with her water glass. Then she looked up.
Can you at least tell me how it happened?
No, sorry. I mean, I can't tell you, not that I don't. Yeah, not that I don't want to. Honestly, I really don't know how I'm different. It's just the way I am.
Twilight blinked at her in surprise.
You've been this way your whole life, then? You've never been able to use magic?
Aaron felt suddenly wary. Something in Twilight's tone warned her that this wasn't a simple question. She thought quickly and opted for another variant of the truth.
I was pretty normal a couple of months ago. I didn't become, I guess you could say, a different kind of pony until a few weeks before I arrived in Pony.
Twilight looked mildly relieved for some reason, but then she frowned and in a deadly serious voice she said,
All right, Sunflower. I accept that what you've told me. I'll have to live with the curiosity of how it happened, since you can't tell me. But I do have to ask one question. It's very important, and you have to answer me honestly, understand?
I understand?
Sunflower, are you a zombie pony?
Somewhere in the distance, George Romero cracked up. Aaron snorted with surprised laughter, and Twilight's deadpan expression quickly dissolved as she joined in. And that's how their waiter found them a few moments later, vainly trying to stifle the giggles that were drawing semi-hostile glares from the other diners. Rolling his eyes, the waiter placed their dishes in front of them. Walking away, he muttered one word under his breath.
Tourists.
That night, Aaron and Twilight went back to the hotel room and made out a lot.
Oh
Fuck
my?
me hard!
Goodbye, horses. Have fun over you.
And that's how we kept Fritzy Beat from ever coming back on the show.
That's
all we have for the reading this week. Come back another time.
Yes.
And this is not clapping, by the way.
Join us next week at the same bat time with the same bat story.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, join us next week at the same bad time, same bad channel. Bye. I was gonna
And
be
same
like,
bat channel.
when did you start watching Wayne's show?
Oh. Maybe I'm a zombie pony.
Well,
Zomboy.
your Discord
Wait, what
thing
kind of
looks like
zombie?
it.
It's fucking Zomboy.
Are you a zombie pony? You have to tell me if you're a zombie pony.
Like, are we talking like Dawn of the Dead zombie, 28 Days
Well,
Later zombie? Walking
I guess
Dead
I'm going zombie hunting tomorrow.
In the words of Michael J. Caboose, Brian's.
If the context would make that a lot funnier as well. But anyways, yes. So, I'm very glad that the person I had speaking the French parts was the one who had to learn it already.
You realize that there's two people in this call who learned French at some point in their lives, right?
Yeah, and it was the two people that had to, and I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at least
That
they
we
went
can
with that.
pronounce bal de foie.
Well, it could have been Le Baudin.
Lebanon?
No!
Not Lebanese blend.
Ow! That hurt, Winchester. My head.
And that hurt my ears.
If Forrest, Luna's being demanding again over here.
Threaten her with me sending Tempest after her.
Well, she wants something very specific that's going to be really hard for me to give her. Something that I have to dig down real deep to be able to find.
Does that have to do with zombie ponies?
No, it has to do with Haagen-Dazs Irish cream brownie ice cream.
Oh, my next guess was going to be your liver.
I think I have like 4 of those now, so whatever.
Man, being a Time Lord must be awesome.
Oh no, that wasn't from that. That was from my goldfish got itself a do-it-yourself cloning kit when we visited 2183 last week.
Oh, sweet.
Did you make a wrong
Originally-
turn on your way to Ciderfest to go to 2183?
No, I made a right turn on avoiding Ciderfest to go to 2183.
Oh.
See, Lars was actually present at Ciderfest, but he was in disguise as John Kenza.
Yeah, I know, it was great.
Why would he be hanging out in that sweaty, stinky, horrible, warm musician's room then?
Great question.
Or did he-
simple? Simple. It was the free soda
Pizza?
that we had in there.
The one fucking Dr. Pepper in the whole room.
Yes, Dr. Pepper. That's definitely what was in that bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just laughed because this whole Ciderfest, it was me and like Dijon and Cyril the Wolf all avoiding rooms with sweaty musicians in them and just like finding a quiet place to sit down.
Yeah.
And then they all made out.
No.
And
But-
then there was I, who was always left out of the action.
You never asked.
Luckily for us, my goldfish and I did take a little trip over the weekend too. Aside
Mhm.
from 2183. We went on a
And
very
what
far
year?
journey up north to Camp Verde, Arizona.
Und?
There's a vineyard up there, and I took pictures of it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, really nice actually. Not as exciting as what we brought back from 2183. By the way, Forrest has a starship now.
Didn't you get me anything?
We got you a couple of things too. We got you a computer. We also popped over a couple universes. We got you a 2020 Pontiac Fiero.
I also have a pretty neat gun on my starship that I was going to give to you when you come over tomorrow.
Give me any presents?
We also got you a 2020 Pontiac Fiero. We may have raided a Pontiac dealership.
I got you a different type of gun.
Oh my!
Really? Really? What kind, man?
Wait. Of those guns there, the one with the glowy bits, which one of those two is that going to?
Well, they both kind of have glowy bits.
Yeah, but one has the really big, obvious glowy bits. The other has the nice, subtle ones that make it look classy.
Oh, yes. The obvious glowy bits go to double R. However, the subtle glowy bits are actually only glowy when they're traveling at supersonic speeds. So that one goes to Winchester.
You're just giving double R the big, obvious, glowy one because it's pink, aren't you?
Also, it's phallically shaped.
Right.
Well, it's 2183. Most weapons from then are.
Yeah, what
Well, then again,
happened?
I have a pink phallic object already, so now I got two of them.
Oh,
It's called
simple.
Winchester.
Simple. In 2087, Bad Dragon actually managed to buy out most of the 3D fabrication companies on the planet.
Oh, right, because that was the merger between Bad Dragon and Smith and Wesson.
And also
Also
3M
really?
and Lockheed Martin.
Oh yeah, the terrible four they called them.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell,
Hey Lars, are you still a penetration tester for Bad Dragon?
That was only one time, okay? By the way, that for the 2.5 listeners that are actually on there, that is actually the only truthful part of this conversation.
How does one become a penetration tester?
Well,
Well.
you have to be able to deeply penetrate things in ways that people weren't expecting.
How did that conversation? How did that kind of conversation even start? Like, were they posting like online applications or something?
No, it usually starts at a furry meetup where I mention that I'm a network engineer. One thing leads to another, and the next thing I'm jamming a port into a hole.
And on that bond,
It all works out.
we basically pulled the ending of or the bombing of Japan here. We had one bombshell, and then right afterwards we had another one. Oh, good lord!
Sure, let's go with that. That's a good analogy.
That's actually a great analogy.
And that's why Winchester Wednesday's final episode was the one you're listening to. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, how many laws of live broadcasting can we break in one evening?
Fuck me hard, darling.
That's
We haven't said fuck enough times yet.
We're breaking the law because we're talking about penises,
Oh,
right?
fuck it. So anyways, let's get on with the shout-outs. So starting out, we'll have Lars's shout-out.
Our shout out tonight is to Original Shoe Goo, shoe repair and protective coating. Buy it today at your local Walmart for only $3.50 for all of your shoe repair needs.
Alrighty. Next on the Forest Rain.
My shout out tonight is actually to Brownie, otherwise known as Biggie Sam, because he put a crap ton of work into making Naham 2 happen. And for one reason or another, felt like a failure because of it. And we don't feel that way, Brownie. We appreciate everything you do and appreciate the opportunity to perform at the venue. So thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, Brownie, it wasn't your fault that the venue didn't feel like checking a bag for 30 seconds.
Yeah, the venue fucking those
Sucked.
yeah, those guys are fucking douchebags.
Alrighty. And next on to Double R.
Yeah, shout out to all my shout out to everyone I got to say hi to at Cider Fest, and to my local friend Vicky, who was able to get a hotel room and a car to get me over there and provide a room for Forrest Thunder so he could come too. I just have to go.
Alrighty, and CMC.
Fires, explosions, LOE, Roan, venison jerky, and in 1 day and 12 hours. Be sure to go over to twitch.tv/DesertBus for Desert Bus for Hope 2019. It's
Alrighty.
gonna be fun.
Alrighty. And yes, thank you to all of you that I was able to see at Ciderfest. It was a good time. Thank you to Charlie for putting on yet another very fun con. Thank you to Brownie for letting me be involved with the experience that was Mayhem. And thank you to Prince Whatever for trusting me with selling your merch. So yeah. Also a gigantic fuck you to Turner Hall, because yeah, you might have nice equipment, but you don't know how to use it, and yeah, your security
Who's
team
Turner
really does
Hall?
suck. Don't throw
I
out
don't know.
musicians or their significant others. So yes. Anyways, thank you all for showing up. I have something to play for you, but I couldn't find where to preview or download the album in time. So anyways, I'm just going to say, download Steel's EP album thingy. Yes. And good night. Winchester 572 going 10-7. I'm out. Bye-bye.